And good morning, everybody. As you heard, my name is Jaana Päeva, and I'm a researcher at the Estonian Academy of Arts. And at the same time, I'm the head of the Art and Design doctoral program there. So it's a joint program for artists and designers, and the program is focusing on practice-based research. And today I'm presenting my own practice-based research done in the same university with a group of colleagues. And the title of the project was The Reconstruction and Artistic Development of the Historical Relief Print Technique. And my team consisted of practitioners. My own background is in leather art and handbag design. And two of the colleagues, you can see the names there, Eva and Lennart. They are also both practitioners of leather art and bookbinding. And the last name, Riina, she is, or at the time she was a master's student with interest in leather decorative techniques. And her background is in textile design and pattern design. So, and actually the research started from these two handbags that I found during my PhD research at the Estonian History Museum. These two bags are from the collection from 1924, and these are made in Eduard Taska's workshop. Eduard Taska is or was the most popular and well-known leather artist and bookbinder at the time in 20s until 40s, and actually known until nowadays. And his legacy is researched a lot. But I noticed on these two bags that they have a pattern on them that was unknown to me. And I have never heard about this kind of technique there. So it took my interest, and also my colleagues I consulted with told me that the technique is also unknown for them either. So we aimed with this project to reconstruct the technique. And actually we started with object analysis. It meant that we went to the archive or where the collection is and studied very closely both of the bags. We measured them, we analyzed them, we tried to figure out how this technique on them was done, also how the bags were done. And for example, we realized that the order of making these bags was, first the leather was dyed, then it was embossed with relief, and only that the details were cut out and assembled into the bag. And when talk about the relief pattern on it, we noticed that that is not very well seen on the images, but we noticed that every motif, it has a very thin, lighter line around the motif everywhere. This was like a specific thing. And actually the pattern differs from more used, or nowadays more used, cliché print and linocut, because the whole pattern is two-dimensional and it doesn't have any lines in the pattern. So after that, we made a summative content analysis, and this means that we collected as much information about the technique as it was possible. So we used all the archive documents, museum collections, all the publications from that time, all the research done about Eduard Taska and his workshop, and we figured out some interesting things. For example, from this document, from the original document, when the bag or these two bags were handed over to the museum, it turns out that this one was actually not orange brownish, but it was greenish. And at the time when we saw the bag, it was so faded that it has lost most of this greenish color. But it was noticeable on the backside and under the flap. So we could imagine the original tone. So we decided that we tried to reconstruct both colors, this orange brownish and actually this greenish version. Also, we found a photograph from a display from 1925 that shows that this pattern was not only used on handbags, but also used on book bindings. But as you see from the display, the majority of the products are completely in different style. So we figured that possibly Edward Tasca was personally not behind developing this technique or these kind of patterns, but actually his workshop was a training workshop. And in 1924, the first course of students started there. And probably this was the work of one of the students, or maybe the supervisor, who was a freshly educated lady coming back from Germany. Adele Wettmar-Hau was her name. So, and actually those bags were never produced. These were only prototypes, because on these displays it shows that it was not favored by the customers. So, and no one knows why also the development of this technique stopped there, because we didn't find any information about this technique or this type of patterns later in his production. So, but we managed to reconstruct the pattern. It turns out it's originally is about 20 to 20 centimeters big, and it consists of asymmetrical, no repeating motifs or elements. And comparing it to the results of on the bags, we thought at the moment, and this was correct, that it was a two-layered printing plate. It means it had something beneath, and all the motifs were glued on it. Because when looking at the bags, it was evident that this was printed with a certain pattern, but the elements on it moved a bit. So maybe this glue was a bit flexible. So it moved in the process of printing with the same plate several times. So also experimented on coloring. And with this, we wanted to use as authentic materials, tools, and techniques as possible, as they were used in the 1920s. And so we used water-based aniline dyes. And if you know these, they are transparent. And we used also the leather, the same type of leather that was used on these bags. It was vegetable tanned without any finishing or coatings. So, and this is beige in color. So all these transparent colors, it's not so easy to put on them because you have to put several layers to get the right shade. So, and we tested it several times. And if you look at the bags, I will show one image later again. The color is not even. It has different shades on it. It's like a lively surface. And it had, on these bags, we could see some darker lines there. And so we imagined how these could have been done and tested several versions. But now on the most important thing, it's about this relief print, how it was done. We started experimenting. We started with gold printing on dry leather first, then with moistened leather. Then we continued with hot printing, using the printing plate with similar kind of elements. But we didn't reach the same quality or the same look until we made a breakthrough looking at this the other side of the leather. And it turned out that this white thin line around the motif appeared on the other side of the leather. And it was a breakthrough. We continued testing and experimenting, and we actually found out that this is a reverse printing. When in conventional circumstances, a printing press pushes the printing plate against the right side of the material that is resting on the press space, then in our case, the printing plate is placed on the press space with the pattern facing upward. Leather is laid on top towards the printing plate, and the press, in contrast to the usual situation, presses the leather against the printing plate. And we also established the optimal settings for this printing. You have to heat the press until 120 degrees and press with the power of 1,500 newtons during 30 seconds. And this is the optimal thing. You get the best result. So, and you can also see here the printing plate, the actual one we used. And we used a steel base, 2 millimeter thick. This is like in traditional ways printing has. And this pattern was made of packaging cardboard, a very shiny one, less than 0.5 millimeter thickness. And these are results, the greenish one and the orange one. And you can see also we kept the layers of the colors we had to put to get the final shade. And this is the comparison of the technique and the original bags. And as we were so successful with the reconstruction, we continued with a developmental phrase. We called it artistic development, to say that this is about very creative way of developing the technique, this reverse printing. And first we started developing printing plates. We tried to use modern materials, some leftovers, like for example MDF boards, and we used modern techniques. So we have here, for example, CNC milled MDF board, and the result here on the right. And we also used different plastics and laser cut, as you see down there, and the result. We also tested different patterns. For example, the upper one consists of only lines, thin lines, about 1.5 millimeter wide. And but down here you can see that the pattern presses at least half of the, or almost half of the surface downwards. And you can see that we were not successful. The laser was not working perfectly. So, but you can see the result here that it's almost 100%, or let's say 99% of the material is there. The whole surface of the leather is pressed down, but you can still see the pattern there. And to make all these results comparable, we used vegetable tanned leather and the same optimal settings for every test. And actually, one thing I forgot to say why we started using all these different materials is that in conventional printing, the heat comes through the printing plate and it has to conduct heat. But now in this case, when everything is turned upside down and is reversed, it means that we can use materials that conduct heat poorly or not at all for the printing plates, because the heat comes through the material directly and only then reaches the printing plate. So it makes it possible to use different materials for printing plates. So, and actually we tested 2 ways of these printing plates. First, we used thicker materials as this MDF board or as linoleum, and they were about 8 to 10 millimeters thick, and we carved with different techniques the pattern into it. So in this case, we laser engraved it. In the previous image, it was CNC milled. And the other version is this laser cut technique. But with laser cut, you see that the background remains and you cut out the pattern. So the result is seen here. The pattern is higher and lighter, and the background is pushed downwards and is darker. And it comes a frame around it because of that. But if you use it like in a cliché print version, then you have like a 2-layered plate. You have one solid plate beneath, and then this pattern engraved in it there. So you see that the pattern that is higher on the plate is lower on the leather, and so it's dark and it doesn't have so concrete frame around it. Then we started playing with the idea and started experimenting with individual elements. At first we thought that we had a genius idea, at least we thought it like this, that if we use a steel plate, we can use magnetic sheet to make the pattern. And we can cut out the pieces with scissors or with knife, and we can put them on the steel plate and press as many ways as we like. We can change the pattern, and it's very environmentally friendly, and it's very economic to use the printing plates like that. But then we figured out that we can try to test with everything else. And we tested feathers, we tested different laces, so on. And so you can see here some of the samples. But we added actually, for example, eucalyptus leaves or manila cord. But we emphasized the result with using foil. Do you know what foil is? Foil is a very thin material. When you are using press and heat, the foil glues itself to the surface of the material. So you can see when the eucalyptus leaves were very thin, the foil emphasizes the leaves, but only stay there on the background too a bit. But if it's the pattern is higher, like with this manila cord or rope, then it looks very perfectly three-dimensional is the result. And the foil is only where the pattern was. And actually the image on the left shows the next direction. When we have tested with all kinds of printing plates, so we started testing with different materials. First with different leathers, with different tannings and finding and coating versions. And actually this is a mineral tanned calfskin, and we used lace or little embroidered pieces with foil and resulted with this kind of pattern. And here you can see we used, for example, biodegradable calf leather with synthetic tanning. We used previously dyed vegetable tanned goat skin. We used patterned calf skin, so it basically worked on every type of leather. We also started using them on fabrics. This is the best result. Actually, this is a nylon fabric, but it has a PVC foam underneath, glued there. So it's basically the relief stays there because of this foam, because the foam underneath is pressed together. And we also tested cork. We tested felt and things like that, but this doesn't work so well. But with this foam, some kind of fabrics worked very well, like the nylon one. Then we reached to biodegradable or recyclable materials. For example, used bonded leather, and it works well. But here the sample is, I think, the most extreme one. We used coffee packaging. You know, if the coffee is packaged, it's the inside part is silvery, nice one. So we used this luxury coffee packaging, and we printed the inside part of it, and you can see the result was very nice, actually. And I have to mention that we selected only these leather-like materials, and we preferred the ones that could be used similar to leather. So it means that this material had to be sewable, adhesive, shape-retaining, and resistant to moisture and temperature. So finally, we made an exhibition called From Taskas Workshop to the Present Day. We had several guided tours there, and we explained how this was done. All these experiments were there. But in addition, we made also some prototypes that we showed there to show how this type of technique could be used nowadays. So we had this the same, these coffee packaging sketchbooks. We have a version that the surface is all covered with the pattern. Then we can see that these some parts of the patterned leather is covered with this pattern, some parts are without. And on left, it's a bag that has like a decorative motif specially done for this design. So, and here again, it's book about handbags from where it all started, from my research. And but together with this last image, I would like to say that the results of the experiments show the reverse print, that it allows to use a wide range of reusable and recyclable materials as printing plates. See, it significantly reduces the cost, time, and environmental impact of cutting out the pattern compared to the traditional printing methods. And this technique is suitable for prototyping as well as for the production of unique items and small-scale products. And I think this research highlights that by integrating emerging technologies, traditional know-how not only remains relevant, but also fosters innovation. The findings emphasize that heritage techniques can adapt to contemporary demands, enhancing both artistic and industrial applications while maintaining a connection to cultural traditions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Did somebody have any question, maybe? Yes. Excusez-moi.
Thank you. That was incredibly fascinating. I just wonder, going back to the original motif on the handbag, does that hold any significance or culturally in terms of the design? Is there any relationship there, or is it just a random design?
I researched about it, so it has no connections to Estonia or local traditions, but it resembles a lot Wiener Werkstätte textile patterns from the time. And I think this was like international new trend and somehow reached to Estonia. I'm guessing that this was the lady coming back from Germany with new ideas and new knowledge. And this was like the high fashion thing at the moment, maybe, or like international style.
Anybody else? Anybody else? Sorry.
Yeah, thank you so much for this presentation. Really fascinating. Do you teach this technique then in ECA now? I don't know if I pronounce it well, but
You are correct. ECA is right term, yeah. Yeah, we teach it. We added it to the leather decorative techniques subject at the BA level. And actually, as we had several open lectures or guided tours there, one of the lady from vocational school was taking part of it and was very interested in it. And she was fascinated because you don't need like a professional equipment to do that. Actually, this can be with some experimentation and unexpected results. It can be used like at home. So, and she started using it with her students. They had the first task to make boxes, like cardboard boxes, and they learned how to cover it with leather. And then every student could do like a personal, unique composition or some decorative patterns on the boxes. They were so happy that they could like personalize the result. And they used this magnetic sheet and like ready-made objects. So they sent me the pictures later, and I was, oh.
That was so wonderful, thank you. In terms of patenting this idea, do you have a copyright over this method, or are you happy for designers to take it on and make it contemporary in their own practice?
As this is a practice-based research funded by Estonian Ministry of Culture, then it's open knowledge. And I have published this already in like international magazines, so it's, yeah, you can use it if you like it.
Have you seen any examples of designers who've used it?
Actually, as this was only 1 year ago, then the same lady who was part of the project and also the guy who was part of the project, they used it for the exhibition pieces. And also the students from ECA has used them on Clavus, for example, and on boots. And they used it with this printed lace again, but white and black and white. So it was looked great, actually. So we're coming there that we spread the knowledge and.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a lovely thing about practice-based research is to share that knowledge, but also to track how that's adapted and used is actually really fascinating. It's beautiful.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, I have a question myself. I wondered if this type of project, do you think it can have any impact, like on the perception of consumers about recycling, sustainability, and?
I think that it's foremost for designers themselves or craft persons who like to use it, because it's much more reasonable if you have a small scale production or if you want to test the unique items or the patterns on unique items to use this type of printing than to use cliché print, for example, when it's much more expensive and environmentally harmful.
Okay, thank you.